We hear the term financial literacy often thrown around as an explanation for why lower income areas suffer economically. The perception that low-income people have poor financial literacy arises because financial literacy and income are statistically related on average. However, and let me be clear about this, low income does not imply poor financial literacy, nor does high income guarantee good financial decision-making. Financial outcomes are shaped by a combination of knowledge, opportunity, access to financial services, and broader economic conditions, as well as societal history, I would add to that too. Financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively use financial knowledge and skills to make informed decisions about earning, spending, saving, borrowing, investing, and managing money throughout life. A financially literate person understands not only how financial products work, but also how their financial decisions can affect their long-term well-being. Over the past several years, many states have increased financial education requirements in public schools, which I think is, frankly, a blessing. As of 2026, more than half of the U.S. states require high school students to complete a standalone personal finance course before graduation, while others integrate financial topics into economics, mathematics, or social studies classes. However, some states still have few or no statewide graduation requirements for financial literacy. This should be a must for all states, and I really can't understand the rationale for why we don't want and deserve a financially educated population. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, the podcast spotlighting nonprofits and social enterprises with budgets under $10 million. My name is Dr. Scherck Wittcoff, and I'm excited to be your host. We bring you the lesser-told stories of organizations that are bold, passionate, and making a real impact. Perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. Small and Gutsy is more than a podcast. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We've recently been ranked number 8 on FeedSpot's top 30 social impact podcasts, and number 3 and number 9 by Million podcasts for the top 30 volunteer podcasts and for our youth empowerment episodes, respectively. We're incredibly proud of these honors, but prouder still of our mission to elevate the visibility of small but mighty change makers. Do you happen to know a nonprofit or social enterprise doing incredible work? If so, send them our way to Laura at smallandgutsy.org. Institutional lending refers to loans provided by formal financial organizations such as banks, credit unions, development banks, and regulated microfinance institutions. These institutions play a central role in economic growth by providing credit for homes, education, businesses, and personal needs. However, access to institutional lending is often uneven, particularly for low-income individuals and households. Institutional lenders generally offer advantages over informal lenders. Institutional lending can be a powerful tool for improving economic opportunity, but many low-income individuals face significant barriers to accessing it. Addressing challenges such as limited credit history, unstable income, documentation requirements, and financial exclusion can help create a more inclusive financial system. However, that doesn't currently exist. Improving access to affordable, responsible credit benefits not only individual borrowers, but also strengthens local economies by supporting education, entrepreneurship, and long-term financial stability. This is where my featured organization steps in. Mint to Prosper Foundation really helps close that gap. Mint to Prosper Foundation is the savings marketplace built for everyday families. I love that term. It's just so fitting. Mint to Prosper Foundation powers Purpose Mint and the Conquer Community Savings Program, which is one platform where asset-limited households save their first $500, step away from predatory lending, and I'm going to have my guests talk a lot about that, because in our dark web world, there's predators everywhere, so I really want to learn more about that. It allows them to connect to safer financial pathways. They help community banks and credit unions reclaim the customers they've quietly lost to alternative financial services, known as AFS. Mint to Prosper Foundation empowers individuals and families to transcend economic volatility and achieve lasting upward mobility by bridging the gap between financial intention and action through evidence-based behavioral design. I absolutely love that too, because behavioral change is so key. developmental capacity building, and inclusive access to the financial mainstream. They envision a world where the financial system empowers every individual to achieve lasting economic security, resilience against volatility, and the freedom of choice to pursue a thriving, self-determined future across generations. Mint to Prosper Foundation builds financial resilience alongside asset-limited households by turning intention into consistent savings behavior. Through structured peer-cohort programming, behavioral savings tools, and accessible banking pathways, they equip people from young people earning their first paychecks to adults rebuilding stability with the safety nets that make long-term economic mobility possible. They believe no person should be denied dignity, opportunity, or the basic tools of economic participation because of where they live or what systems they inherited. I am beyond honored to introduce my guest today, Nesha K. Brown, Executive Director of the Mint to Prosper Foundation and a social impact strategist focused on financial empowerment and systems design. She specializes in building structured savings pathways that help asset-limited households step away from predatory lending and reach long-term stability. With a background in program architecture, operational strategy, and community-centered innovation, she brings clarity, accountability, and mission-aligned leadership to advance sustainable impact. I am so thrilled that you are here, so let's get started. Welcome, Nesha, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Your passion is clear, so I hope. Is it Nesha?
It's Nisha. You got it.
Oh,
You
good.
got
Yay.
it.
Okay, because I wasn't sure. But I am so enamored with what you are doing. Number one, it almost feels like whether it's an exercise program or a weight loss program or any kind of program that changes behavior, we can do that with our finances. And you are here to share about Mint to Prosper, which I also love that name, Foundation, and how it came about. Where did your passion come from? And how did this get started?
Yeah, Laura, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk more about my journey of evolving within Mental Prosper Foundation. And I would say my journey started from lived experience. A while ago, when I was 19, my dad was killed at work. She-rock fell on him and broke his neck.
Oh
At
my
that
God.
time, I had lost my last parent. My mom died when I was 3 from ovarian cancer. And so from the age
Oh
of
my
3 to
God.
18, I watched my dad misuse my survivor benefits. That was supposed to be my safety net. So by the time I was 19, he was killed. And so because of his financial illiteracy and his behavior patterns and misusing my survivor benefits, that pushed me into like a place of homelessness. Temporarily, of course. And so with that, I always imagine, like, even going through that situation, I always imagine, like, what if he would have been more proactive? And because, you don't know when you're going, something is like that will happen. But what if he would have been more proactive in how he used what my mom had worked for and left to really set a path for me to where I didn't have to be pushed in survivor mode. And so that situation, I learned a lot from it. I had to get into a place of unlearning everything that I knew about financial illiteracy and relearn everything that I know now. Got on this pathway of discovering, and I became my own social experiment. I started learning and applying my own techniques to myself. But in the midst of that, I also started sharing online. And so when I started sharing online, people organically started to resonate with my story as well as be attracted to some of the self-help work that I was doing. And that just by extension, that resulted into them just asking me, hey, Nesha, can you help me do these things? The same thing you're doing for yourself. We come from the same place. Can you really help me? And so I always say that this was accidental. It's not something that I planned. It just happened organically. And so through that experience, I was working full time. And people just started swarming me. And within 6 months, at the age of 20, I believe, I made $55,000 just talking to people on the phone, helping them
Wow.
go over their budgets, helping them optimize their credit reports, just basic, very basic financial literacy. I just built community around that. And in return, that just evolved into just, the work that I do now, in addition to being able to serve, over 1,000, 1,500 people since
Amazing.
2017. And so that's what really ignited the passion within me Because I think when we go through those situations, or me specifically, I made an internal vow, like, I can't change what my father did not do because he only knew what he knew. But what I can do is unlearn and relearn to change the trajectory for me and my family. And so the work that I thought that I was doing for myself, it was for everybody else. And so that's what really sparked my passion for the work that I'm doing now.
Nesha, I have to say, I hadn't heard that story. We had met briefly over the phone before we wanted to interview you. First of all, I'm incredibly sorry for the loss of both your parents, your mom at such a young age. And I love that you didn't dig a hole and crawl in it.
Mm-hmm.
You have so much strength. You have some inner spirit that drives you. And I love that you don't seem to be angry. You seem to be determined that you
Mm-hmm.
are not going to fall in that same place. And so you had to unlearn, which I think is actually beautiful, and relearn something you knew was out there while you were working to try to survive yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
then be able to then spread that knowledge to other people. And then that grew into a nonprofit foundation for others. And I'm just, incredibly moved by you as a person, because not everybody would be able to do that. And I also think you're here to say that everyone can learn financial literacy. And that is so key, because most of us, we just want to make sure we have enough money in the bank to pay our bills, but that really isn't enough to help us think about the future. And as you pointed out, you never know what can happen. And so you want to have a safety net, and your mom had one for you, and your dad, made some choices that put you in a
Yeah.
terrible situation. So I am
Yeah.
sorry for your losses, but grateful of how many people, including yourself, that you have helped to find the light through that very dark tunnel into financial stability and sustainability, because that's what you're about.
Yeah.
And I love that you talk about behavior change. So I want to hear about the program, how it works. I know you're located now in 2 cities.
So right now we are standing up programming in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is my hometown, and then Tulsa, Oklahoma as well within the last year.
That's so great. So you're spreading into other areas, which is great. And look, I'm way older than you, but when I was in school, we never had financial literacy. Zero. I mean, we didn't have as many choices as there are today in terms of you went to the bank and you withdrew money from a teller, and then eventually we had drive-through. I mean, it's got advanced incredibly since that time. But still, it's such an important thing that we do not automatically teach our young people. So tell me about your program and how it works. You've built this incredible community. So tell me about the program, because you have different parts of the program from what I understand.
Yeah, so back in 2024, we received a grant from Louisiana State University, and we received that grant to do like a social experiment where we were able to take 30 unbanked, underbanked, or asset limited participants and help them establish a safety net over a 10-week period to avoid relying on predatory lending when they experience a financial shock. Through that program, in partnership with Chase Bank, we were able to get those families on a pathway to establishing their first $500 at minimum buffer. And that work just evolved over time since then into like a thriving community savings program. So it originally started off as a pilot experiment. Can we effectively engage low to moderate income communities in a way that creates like this accountability infrastructure to put them on a pathway to upward mobility? And so just by the success of that and just the learnings, the things that we discovered, we just evolved that work into the actual community savings program. We learned a lot. Our average age participant was 34 years old. Existing
Wow.
mainstream tools expect a person that age to already have some type of safety net or some type of stability. And that's not always the reality for certain zip codes. And so we really learned a lot, really leaning into community from a human centric lens to co-create with the community versus top-down solutions. And that has been really effective because it allowed us to learn a lot about the community that we were aiming to serve in that way. And even that participant, she was 34 years old. She rated her level of financial literacy as a beginner and had never saved any more than $800. And another participant stated, don't expect me to have $1,000 set aside to put inside of an emergency fund. Teach me how to develop the habits to start. And so when we think about behavior change, we start with habits. We help them establish micro habits to develop that memory muscle, because we also learned that most of these participants had experienced some type of financial trauma. So we had to like pace it out. So while they're building their safety nets to reach that financial outcome, they're also developing habits, positive habits as well, to like interchangeably do both. And so that's done through our tech development, which is PurposeMint. And PurposeMint is the fintech arm of what we do that's currently in production. And so it's basically a savings marketplace that allows users to onboard and develop those micro habits that eventually become a bridge connecting them to safer financial pathways. PurposeMint is currently in production. We are in the process of doing a soft launch to our past cohort participants, but likely by the end of the year, November, December, we will be in the app stores. And so those are two of our biggest initiatives that we are working towards to continue to create a sustainable impact within communities.
I love this. So I want to go back to that example. First of all, congratulations on getting a grant, because that shows that you've got a program that now you have research behind you. You piloted and it was very successful. And you said there were 30 families, right, who participated. So walk me through, is it mostly online? Is it in person when you first did this? And do they get to connect with each other for support? Because some of this is definite behavior change and some of it might be peer support as well. So I'd love to hear the details of that.
The original pilot started off very scrappy, like a lean version
It's
of what we
supposed
do
to.
now. Exactly. And so it was as far as the framework of the program in itself, we always started with open and retreat, which basically we developed curriculums and workbooks to kind of introduce their 10-week savings plans to them, show them 3 different ways to be able to meet that goal by the end of the program, communicated the expectations and all of the things, introduced them to our banking partners, because at that time they had to physically go inside of Chase Bank and open up those savings accounts. And so that's kind of what we did. We did open and retreat, and then following that open and retreat, over 10 weeks workshop programming.
Great.
And while they are doing workshop programming, they are also assigned to financial coaches that they meet with one-on-one.
Brilliant.
They're also within community as well. We do have online community where they engage, they share their wins, they share their highs, their lows, just all of the things. And so that's where that peer-to-peer accountability and engagement come in at as well, because they're collectively working towards like this milestone as well. But also being able to have space to share when things pop up, because during our first pilot, that community piece was so important, because one of our participants, by the end of the program, she wasn't able to meet that full requirement of saving $500. And the reason being is because Louisiana experienced a hurricane. And so she had to tap into her emergency fund to be prepared for that hurricane. But as a community, had to reassure her, like, this is what this is for.
Right.
You get it. Like, you understand that you had something to leverage when you experience like a crisis. And that was like the main point. And so it was moments like that made community important, as people were still like trying to meet the milestone as well as navigating just life. And following that, once they reach by the end of that 10-week savings plan, they are invited to a closing retreat, which allows them to kind of celebrate their success and receive their certificate and things like that. But it's a hybrid model. Most of our workshop programming and our one-to-one financial coaching is done virtually, just to accommodate working parents and people who, get off late in the evening. And then we always start with an in-person open retreat and a in-person closing retreat as well.
That's amazing. And the program is 12 weeks long.
Mm-hmm.
And has it iterated into, are you using the same basic program still? Although it sounds like you now will have these online tools that I had seen on your website, and so wanted to mention them. And then you talked about them launching, which is exciting. And how many cohorts can you start? Like, is it usually one for 12 weeks and then you'll have another for 12 weeks? Or one in each location in Oklahoma and in Louisiana? Do you do them simultaneously? How does that work?
So, for example, for this year specifically, each region that we serve, because we are expanding our programming across
Great.
the states. So each region that we serve have its own opening retreat and has its own closing retreats. The virtual
Great.
and the one-on-one coaching is oftentimes the workshop programming and the one-on-one coaching is merged together. So it's a blended situation where, no matter what region you're in, you're able to come in community with people, from different parts of the world and learn
It's great.
together. And so that's kind of the framework that makes growth sustainable, because trying to stand up programming in person across like different states, that can be a lot. And so we just made a decision to do a mix of, when we run the community service program, although we may do them in different regions, we try to align the agenda closely so the workshop programming can kind of combine.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant on so many levels. I am enamored with what you've created and hope it goes to every single state in the United States. I'd actually like it to
Thank
be
you.
adopted by the public school system because I just think it's got to start early and yet
Mhm.
people can change their behavior. So, do you have a few tips that you teach people that you learned along your path and really now other people may be surprised, but they can easily learn these ideas and tips?
I think the biggest thing that I did in my journey of wanting to like overcome that crisis I had experienced and get on a place of financial sustainability, I think the technique I applied was very simple. I actually consulted with a financial coach. And at that time, after my dad had passed, and one of the things, she just gave me a simple strategy that I always share with people who don't even those who don't even come through the programming. One thing she had me do that I feel that's still relevant is she told me to print out my last 3 bank statements. She told me to get 3 color highlighters. She told me to highlight my needs and my wants, and it was something else she told me to highlight. But it became real when I did that exercise because I was able to recognize how much I was spending in each category. And that became, it's like perception becomes reality. Like when people can see it, even in conversations now, I notice how people don't check their bank statements and things like that. So that was like an awakening activity for me to be like, okay, well, this is my wants. This is how much money I'm spending on my wants. And at that time, it surpassed my needs. And then a conversation or a question becomes, what are you willing to sacrifice to get to where you're going? And that's where, again, that reflective piece came in. And so that's where I knew like the behavior change was inevitable to kind of get me on a consistent path to sustainability. And so just making those small changes was very impactful for me. It was just that those micro changes of just one, awareness, becoming aware of my circumstances, because a lot of my financial literacy or a lot of my behavior around money was just rooted in learned behavior and just mindlessly spending. And so again, that small exercise is always what I encourage people to do. Just look at your reality and look at where you are and just ask yourself, what sacrifices am I willing to make to change this?
I so appreciate that because I think, and you said it so beautifully, mindlessly spending. So many of us do that. And I think we see that shiny thing and we think, oh, I'll worry about it later. I'll worry about how to pay for it later or whatever. And it is about making choices, but informed choices. And then when all of a sudden you have money at the end because you made those choices, you're like, oh, this is my buffer.
Mhm.
Before we did so much, credit card and sort of the rest of it, we'd have, at least when I was younger, we'd have, a jar and you'd put change in it, out of your pocket or whatever. I remember taking the change jar to the bank at one point and there was like $150 in that. And this is a long time ago. It was shocking. I would have never thought there was that much money in just
Yeah.
putting change in every day when, we got home. And so it was really an awakening for me to say, boy, we're not using money in ways that we could. So I think that's another message there, but it's the awareness piece that is so key. Or I often get shocked, and I shouldn't, but I often get shocked when I go to the grocery store and I think, I'm not even buying meat. How did I spend over $100? So again, it's that reality check and deciding, is this something I really want? Can I make something similar at home? Whatever. We all make choices, but I love that level of awareness is sort of where you start because it's eye opening. And then the other thing that I hear, which is great, in what you're sharing is when you have a peer cohort, people can bounce ideas off others. And I would guess most people in the cohort have experienced something similar because we all have the needs. Like, okay, you have to pay your rent, or you have to pay your mortgage if you're lucky to have a mortgage, or you have to pay the gas bill or car insurance, whatever. But the wants are all the extras that you don't actually need. And sometimes it's hard to differentiate that. And we've unfortunately live in a society that I think has taught us to appreciate in a bad way immediate gratification with all the movement on the internet and TikTok and everything else. And I mean, Instagram used to be a great place. And now every time I go on and I use it for obviously small and gutsy, it is one big advertisement. There are more things and most of them not really well made, some of them maybe. And people make money through advertising, whether they use the product or not. And it's, again, I'm moving now into a little bit of the dark web. But let's talk about predatory stuff, because you mentioned that several times. And I was very moved by that word, because it is. People prey on many different people for many different reasons. But vulnerable folks are the target, whether it's age related, economically related. The 2008 crash in the housing market is kind of an example of that, where people were not vetted appropriately and were oversold a bill of goods in terms of what they could afford in the housing market. So, Nesha, you're on. Tell us a little bit about your view of predatory behavior, how you've seen it, and how you warn people about it.
I remember when I was younger, coming out of high school, really coming out of college, even after my dad had passed, my first experience to predatory lending was just me going to having check stubs to be able to go to like a payday loan company. That really showed me how taxing payday lenders are, because I was going to borrow money at like triple the interest rate, regardless of a credit score. But that was learned behavior as well. And so me believing that that was my only option, I feel like it just put me in a very vulnerable space when it comes to access to, lending. And I would say as I grew and started to learn, and even now I recognize that those payday lenders, they are designed as 2-week loans on paper, like aligned to your paycheck. But on average, research shows that people stay trapped in those loans 5 months.
Wow.
So it's
And so you're paying that interest rate for 5 months when
Yeah.
really it was supposed to be sort of to get you out of a situation kind of immediately for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was your experience. What are some of the other predatory experiences that some of your participants have had? Do they share that, or how do you warn people about it?
So basically, I've also had other experience, though I gave example of one, but I think it's very common across just my lived experience as well as the participants that we serve. Even just the rent to own furniture places. A lot of our cohort participants can resonate with my lived experience of going purchase a washing machine and dryer and paying, every week $30. But by the end of that loan, I realized I could have paid for it twice if I would have just proactively saved the money versus making that impulsive decision. And so that's a lot of common things that we even see across our cohort of people just getting trapped into like those weekly, it's marketed in a way that it looks affordable. Like I can do $30 a week, but then by the time you get to the end of it, you realize how much you actually paid out. And may double, and you realize I could have just saved and went to the store and brought this cash. And so it's
Right.
those things that we like to warn people about as a organization, because it's disguised as something that's helpful and is really helpful. So just educating people to adopt this mindset of like delayed gratification, to like avoid those traps and snares of predatory lending practices. That has been like the biggest thing. Like really be intentional about what you're signing off on, calculating, doing the math, and not just seeing things as face value and just going with it just because it says $25 a week. Look at the term
Right.
that, calculate how much you're going to pay for over that period. And again, when people mindlessly make those buy-in decisions, they don't do that type of due diligence. They just sign off on it and just link their bank accounts and say, hey, I want this furniture, I want this Calico's bed.
And also, I love what you said because it's so true. And it's such an easy trap to get into because it's sort of painful waiting. But the gratification when you do wait is so huge. And people, when they've experienced that, then they get it. And I also think that sometimes with those kinds of lending situations, when you repay more quickly or you purchase it, like in the furniture one, there's a penalty that you have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a penalty for even signing up because you have to pay to sign into the program, right? So it's not just here, take the couch and it's only $25 a week. It's actually much more than that when you think about having to sign up for the program. There's all these hidden costs that people don't realize. And it's tragic. I understand why these businesses exist. And at the same time, I think they're doing such harm, as you pointed out, to our society and to our most vulnerable. Because I think this also happens to the elderly when they're on a fixed income and they can't work in the same way and they're targeted very often. So I love that you speak from a lived experience point of view because people then really trust you because you've been there.
Yeah.
So I think that's incredibly helpful to them.
To your point, something came up to me when you said that this is like a huge issue. But yeah, just through research, we've also learned that, the predatory lending economy is a $280 billion economy. 280.
Wow.
That's been preying, PREY. That's what we try to, again, raise awareness about and help people dismantle those beliefs that keep them confined to those type of systems.
I love that you do that. And I'd love to hear some examples of how you teach people. So some of it is behavioral, which you mentioned. And then in terms of the predatory behavior, if it looks too good, it probably is that kind of. And I would love to know any specifics you want to share about how you can warn people or educate people what to look for. So one is to do the math. You said that, which is great, and think about it. And yes, it would delay getting the item, but for how long? And not to fall prey, because we all do this, to the salesperson in that context who just wants you to sign and they'll give it to you and you can walk out of the store. That's really tricky. So share some of your wisdom, because you have it for sure, about how you help people navigate that, because I think that's hard.
Yeah, I think helping people navigate that is basically just, I think the awareness piece is important. Helping them understand like the risks is key, like helping them understand exactly how much they're losing and how that could have been leveraged for upward mobility, because you got to think about it. These systems are set up to extract money from people that are already in poverty. And so it's showing them the reality of, we calculate this loan and you realize you've paid this much into this loan. What if you would have leveraged this money to create an upward mobility opportunity for yourself? Workforce development or childcare access or combating homelessness or just all of the things. This is why using that leverage to establish some type of collateral or cushion can also not only help you avoid predatory lending, but it can create upward mobility opportunities for yourself. So it's not only showing people like, okay, this is the issue, but this is how you could change the issue and leverage those same funds to get yourself ultimately out of poverty. And so I think that has been like the biggest story or narrative that we have developed that really sticks and relates to people. Because once they see, oh, I could have saved this extra $200 to upskill, like purchase like a certification and ask for a raise on my job or something like that. Giving people those different scenarios on how they can not only resolve the issue, but kind of overcome the issue. That has been like a key factor in how we like warn people, how we connect with people to help them see themselves as part of the solution as well, and not just like a victim of the system.
I love that so much because you're empowering people to make good decisions and you're pointing out through the scenario or the narrative that is really a reality for people. And so I'd love to hear, without names, any aha moments that you shared one already about the woman who felt badly about spending her cushion, but she had to in preparation for a hurricane, which I loved your response to that. That's exactly what you're supposed to use it for. So I love that because it made her feel better and not like she had done something wrong because she hadn't. But I'd love to hear some aha moments, like light bulbs that you've seen for people or stories at the end of the 12 weeks, without names, but anything that you want to share because this is so powerful what you are doing. It's incredibly powerful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I guess one story that comes to mind specifically is that our cohort is very intergenerational. Our average age participant is like 18, and our oldest participant is like in their mid 60s. And so,
Love it.
particularly one person, she was a grandmother and she was of age, like she was between 55 to 60. And one of the things that she mentioned at the end of the 12 weeks is like, you're never too old to reset and get on the right track. She said, I made these careless mistakes when I was raising my kids, but I can get it right for my grandkids. And that was a big aha moment for me because it's like, okay, her being able to take accountability and say, hey, this is what I did when I didn't have access to, but now that I have access to, this is what I can do to change trajectory for another generation that I'm a
I
part
love
of.
it.
And I think that was like one of the biggest moments for me to be like, wow, this is very impactful. Like, this is very intergenerational. And that's the thing, empowering people to not guilt trip them on their past decision making, but
Yeah.
show them that it's always an opportunity to get it right. It's always a reset. You can always reset no matter your age.
I love that because, first of all, she's a role model then for her grandchildren for sure, and maybe for her children in that way because she's already started to change. And the second thing that I love is there's a reason for everything, or that's my wish or hope that we can make sense out of things. And that she took accountability to say, that was who I was then. This is who I am now. And you're never too old to change your behavior. And she's doing it and she's proving it. So you have some magic going on in that 12 weeks. That is clear to me because folks are coming out of it with this renewed sense of can do for sure. And that's what I'm hearing in this. And I love that you have in the same cohort, maybe an 18-year-old and then maybe a, 30-year-old, and then you've got a 60-year-old. And I love that because they also get to connect with each other and not point a finger, but embrace sort of where they are and how they're going to change. And listen, we keep living until we don't. And that is a fabulous message for folks. So I just love what you're doing. I want it to be everywhere. I don't want you to be small. You're gutsy, but I don't want you to be small. And I love that you used your own experience to launch something for so many other people. It's really pretty incredible. So all of these stories that you hear, these light bulbs that go off, it must warm your heart, or even the ones where someone just isn't able to do it at that moment in time. Somebody has to be ready, but it sounds like you spend a significant amount of time getting someone ready and you vet your coaches and you really have a program that you've iterated and it works. There's proof that it actually works. And you're not that old. You haven't been doing it for that long. That's what I love. So any words of wisdom for folks out there who are finding themselves stuck in a hole, for lack of a better word?
I think it goes back to that activity that I shared earlier. I think just starting small is important. I think sometimes we set like these big goals and want to accomplish these big milestones, but I think that's why we focus so much on micro habits or micro savings, because before you can get to $500, you got to know how to save $50. Choosing a starting point, a micro starting point, is always key, and just being able to assess your reality and understand where you are and where you want to be. And I think that level of awareness can put you on at least on a path to taking proactive steps. I always tell people Rome wasn't built in a day, but they laid a brick every day. And every day you pick up and lay
Love
your
it.
brick, you look up and have your. And so that's the mindset I embody, even with teaching people how to develop these micro habits, because it's the same principle. And so I think that would be like the advice that I would give anyone that's on the fence.
You sound also like you're an incredible cheerleader. Like, yes, Rome wasn't built in a day. So that $10 brick that you just put down is a goal, or maybe that $2 brick or that $1 brick. It doesn't matter. The brick is still put down. It's laid down. That's the foundation. So I just admire you so much because I think you could have had a very different scenario for yourself. And I'm so happy that you didn't, not only for you, but for all of the people you have helped. And I just hope you become much more nationally well-known and that your organization just grows beyond your wildest dream, because you have created something that is so helpful to so many people. And in your 12-week curriculum, I wonder if, and I know you're a foundation, so you're a nonprofit, but I wonder if there could be a resource side or maybe in your own business that you could take that curriculum, whether it's a workbook or whatever, and maybe create a type of game for people to get used to the idea. There are games out there, I'm sure, but you have a magic something in those 12 weeks. And certainly it's the cohort and the coaching that you do and all the other, but it would be so interesting to create something that maybe when they graduate, they take with them as a reminder or something. And then they can play this with their family members if they're family members, just as a learning thing. Just a thought, because you don't need one more thing on your plate, but I would love to capture that 12 weeks in a way that becomes, in the social work psych world, sort of object relations. It is like a reminder. You know how people wear rubber bands to remind them of something? This could be a reminder of staying on the path. I don't know, just thoughts, because I love what you're doing. I think you've already changed my mind of something I'm going to change in my own life. And I think it's important to wake up knowing it's just one step forward every day. That's all you have to do. So I love that.
I appreciate that.
So are you ready for the quick and gutsy questions?
Yes, I am.
Okay, they're just fun. Okay, what is at the top of your wish list for Mint to prosper? But the answer can't be money or funding, because most every nonprofit needs money or funding. So what's at the top of your wish list?
I would say infrastructure. Technology that would allow us to expand across the globe.
Oh, that'd be so great. Can you imagine how many states, but not just states, countries, individuals who are elsewhere, even if it's not the same system, your messaging is still applicable in all of those places. I mean, it would just be amazing. I love that idea so much. If you were to think of a song that describes Mint to Prosper, what would it be?
The first thing that comes to my mind is Party in the USA.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
It's always like once we get past that 10-week savings plans, it's always a celebratory moment for our participants. And that's the first song that came to mind.
It's so true, though, because that first in person where you're kind of setting the groundwork, and then the last one after at the 12-week mark is got to be really moving for people.
Party in the USA.
Yeah, you got to play that for every final cohort. I love that. Okay, it's great. What makes Mint to Prosper Foundation gutsy? Because you're definitely gutsy. What makes you gutsy?
I think being resourceful. I think that was what really makes us gutsy. But despite having a lean team, despite having not a large operational support, we are very resourceful and can still make impact just like any other larger organization that may have a bigger budget.
I love that. You are definitely gutsy to be able to do that. And I love that you're resourceful. That really contributes to your gutsiness, because it does. That's clear to me. What is something that outsiders, or maybe even a few insiders, don't know about Mint to Prosper Foundation?
Maybe the story that I shared with you earlier about just my passion for the work through just lived experience. I don't get to share like my personal story often. So I don't think a lot of people, it's always a surprise. Like if they hear about it, they were like, wow, I would have never known, but now I understand why you're so passionate about this work. And so that's one of the things that I say that people don't really know, but when they receive it, they are just surprised.
Yeah, and probably in awe of you, because you are still young, but you were so young. And to lose a mom in the horrible way when you were really little, and that she really did set up something for you, and then for your dad to have died in a freak accident, put you in a horrific position. And I too, I'm enamored and I don't even know the right word to say, but in awe of you and your talk about resourcefulness and resilience. Those should be your middle names, frankly. They really should be. If you could get one celebrity or influencer, because of course I'm on Instagram and so many people are, to talk about Mint to Prosper, who would that be?
Maybe Oprah Winfrey, if she could just shout this out on her show.
Yeah, do a big shout out or interview you, and I'm going to add one more, which I don't really, but I think it'd be so great, is Michelle Obama.
Exactly.
Because both of them,
literally was going to say,
they're both of them. First of all, Oprah's been around a little bit longer, but they both are dedicated individuals to education. Regardless of what area of education, Oprah's done so much around the educational world, not only for young women of color in South Africa, but also education in terms of the general public based on the topics that she brings and talks about. And Michelle Obama, incredibly, education has always been an area of strength for her. So I think you need to reach out to her and her brother, Craig, who do a podcast and say, we were on Small and Gutsy, but really, we need to be on your podcast. Because what you're doing is incredible, really incredible. I don't know how you get to her, but you should, because you are changing people's lives all the time, and you'll continue to do that. So how do people reach you? How do they find out about you? How do they find you, connect with you?
So on all social media channels, my @ is Nesha K Brown. On LinkedIn is Nesha Brown. And my website is neshabrown.com. And then if you want to connect with the nonprofit, it's menttoprosper.org, and Mint is MINT. And so that's where we live and breathe, and we're excited to connect with everyone.
I urge people to reach out to you, whether they want to make a donation to the foundation or be a participant, because so many people can learn. And I realize you're only in 2 states, but people can still learn from you. And maybe it would even inspire you to be in other states as well, as long as the funding were there. I think it's just absolutely amazing. So I have to take a moment now and thank you for this incredible interview. You are such a bright light in an environment that can be so deeply shady, frankly, as we talked about. And you are just the bright light saying to people, you do not have to fall prey, P-R-E-Y. I love that you said that. You can pray, P-R-A-Y, for some of the good things, but you have to be an active participant in that. So I think you are an incredibly special human being at such a young age to have learned what you have learned and to want to give that to other people. So I feel like it's a blessing that you came into Small and Gutsy, and I hope you always stay gutsy, but I don't want you to stay small. So thank you for being with me.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity.
You were great. Your story's beautiful. And I think maybe you tell it more often when you can, because it really does demonstrate to other people so many things are possible. When you've been dealt a really bad hand, you can rise above that. And you have the power and the ability through a lot of behavioral stuff. I hear that loud and clear. And I love that you don't shy away from that, because you may not be able to change the unfair systems or the predatory behavior of others, but you can change our response to that as a collective. And I cannot tell you how moving that is. So thank you again. You're just amazing.
Thank you.
It was great. Please go to smallandgutsy.org to check out all of our episodes. And if you're so inclined, please purchase some Small and Gutsy merchandise, consider sponsoring an episode, or making a donation. Both are tax deductible and help keep us going and spotlighting these great organizations. The opinions and viewpoints expressed by our guests are independent and don't reflect the position or views of Small and Gutsy. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview, so before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, the donors, the sponsors, and my incredible board of directors, Brianna Carmichael, John Gatto, Lucy Mello, Ari McCoy, Melissa Greitz, and Serena Rajabian, who believed in me in this project enough so to sign on to support this effort, and all the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. Together, we are spreading social impact, and you can help us. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to email me the name of any organization you feel would benefit from being interviewed. From small and gutsy to big with impact. I'm Dr. Laura Scherck Wittcoff, and thanks for listening.